The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Already on the message board, your boy Mead. We certainly say hello to you. Welcome to the program. As my sunburn, it's day 4, I guess this would be, with Caleb Calhoun. I am Dave Hooker, and a lot on the program today. As I think somebody unintentionally shot a little bit of shade Nico Iamaleava's way. We will discuss that also on the program today. Tennessee football, this Jayson Jenkins thing. Guys, an agent's responsible for this. An agent that wants to get involved with the NIL and wants to get involved with collectives, and suddenly he's going to the portal and then he's not. This is something scary that the NCAA needs to address. It just happens to affect a current volunteer and Tennessee's roster. And to be clear, I don't think Tennessee wanted Jayson Jenkins to go anywhere. All right, so which Vols will be the biggest stars in the NFL draft? Reggie Bush gets his Heisman back. What's next? Pete Rose, welcome to the Hall of Fame. Derek Dooley leads a group of 5 playoff initiative that they're trying to get this thing done with a group of 5 playoff. What could be more exciting than Derek Dooley's input? The most exciting Vols sport to watch. It's not just football anymore, with the Lady Vols team that's going to get up and down, and a men's basketball team that has star power. Whether or not you like it, whether or not you loved what Santiago Vescovi did last year, or whether or not you're blown away from by Dalton Connect, they're interesting to watch. Also, quarterback situation, Tennessee barely making the top 10, according to one well-known regional writer. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I am good. How are you doing, Dave? You're looking a little bit better today.
A little bit better, not as burnt, so not as crispy. I'm looking for that shade. As Smoky Mountain Red says, I need that shade. I do. Louisville should be sued. We're going to discuss that as well. As I want to get right into this Jayson Jenkins situation, because something didn't smell right from the get. And as a reporter that's been doing this for a while, my hunches aren't always correct, because to assume so, what would that be?
That's crazy.
Right. But you'll find, Caleb, as you and I work together, my hunches tend to be at about a 60 to 70, maybe even a 75 to 80% ratio of being correct. So I had a hunch on this Jayson Jenkins thing, and why? I'm going to tell you right now. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
So I get followed by a certain sports agency, and you can read about this on offthehooksports.com, but I'm going to go ahead and share it with you now, because I get followed by this sports agency shortly after Jayson Jenkins is announced to go to the transfer portal, which now we've learned that he's not going to go to the transfer portal. So I thought the timing was a little bit odd, so I looked into it, and it was reported by Matt Zenith, defensive lineman, AP Sports Agency, not the Associated Press Sports Agency, but another one, I assume, told 247 Sports that this young man, who you know is one of your top Tennessee defensive linemen, well, at least at the bottom of that echelon, but a guy that's a redshirt sophomore and could contribute, is suddenly headed towards the portal. But no quotes from him. No quotes at all. I look at this Twitter profile for this agency, and it says, quote, the #1 agency specializing in NIL. And it also calls itself worldsbestagency.com. Well, that website doesn't exist. I think Jayson Jenkins got steered. I think that Jayson Jenkins got steered for the benefit of a NIL collective group that is, don't think of Spire Sports. That's a whole different level. But an NIL collective group that is essentially a food truck compared to Spire Sports and compared to the big boys that are in the sport, the 12th man, if you want to pick that at Texas A&M. I think Jayson Jenkins' career almost got seriously screwed up because somebody wanted to make a little bit more money. Caleb, tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong at all. This is a scam agency. A&P Sports Agency has, guys, I want to bring this up to you. They're leaking stuff across the country right now about different players. You're seeing On3 and 247 report things saying A&P Agency told them this. A&P Agency told them this. They have 692 followers on Twitter. They're following 592 people. That's not a normal agency. So I just pulled up an article that's a feature that's been done on them by On3. A&P Agency was apparently started by two people involved with Texas A&M, Stephen Aguilera and Jacob Piasecki. And Aguilera had created the Aggie Zone, a social media account and magazine, and partnered with Piasecki, who created the Class Chat app and spent time working in social media and cryptocurrency and is an NFT guy. That's who's running this agency. Okay? They're trying to get out ahead in college football, which is fine. You want to, if you see an emerging market, that you do that. And their way to do that is to do things like leak stories about Jayson Jenkins or other players like that they think they could steer somewhere and make some money off of. This is everything Nick Saban ranted about with college football years before NIL became a thing, where agents just go out of their way that aren't even real agents but are trying to become agents, and they try to get these athletes early and often, and they try to poach these college athletes and oftentimes screw over their eligibility. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say, yeah, they lied on Jayson Jenkins. I owe Jenkins an apology because I wrote an article Monday saying why he would have entered the portal. And then I said on Tuesday when he backed out, I said, we debated over whether or not you should even let a player back in who backed out. He didn't back out of anything. This agency just made this up, I think, and did it so they could try to get their names out there.
Yep, I agree. And this is why, and I want to take a second to thank our friends at the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com, Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. Hooked, 10% off. This is why people say, oh, just let the NCAA continue to be the governing body of college football and everything's going to be fine. And I say, tisk, look at what can happen. This thing went off the rails, absolutely off the rails, because the NCAA didn't do anything. So what are they going to do now that agents are going to get involved? Probably nothing. That's why you have to have somebody that's more powerful, whether that's a conglomeration of the SEC or the Big Ten, or it's just one or the other, and they agree to that. Whatever it is, I'm not trusting the NCAA and this new guy that was hired to replace Mark Emmert to be in charge of something so important as a player's eligibility. That matters something to me. I'm players first. I don't know that this new NCAA will be.
No, well, the NCAA has, let's be fair, the NCAA has absolutely never been players first in the history of, and maybe when it was founded by Teddy Roosevelt in 1907, but even that was because, for those who don't know, it was founded because the college football was about to be banned as a sport because so many players were dying, and then they decided, well, we don't care about players dying, but we don't want the sport to be banned, so let's form this NCAA to kind of figure out a way to protect them from dying. That's really why it formed, guys. So from their inception, every motive by the NCAA has been nefarious. But Yes, they're in this situation. This is something they could do to maybe, we talked a couple of weeks ago about things they could do to save face. This is one of them. If the NCAA got involved in regulating agents, no one's really going to stop that, are they? No one's going to complain about that.
No, what's going to happen is that the kids are going to get caught in the middle, and that's an absolute shame, but that's exactly what's going to happen. Portions of the program brought to you by our friends at BetUS, 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits, plus 10% gamblers insurance as well. BetUS.
Favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
All right, let's take a look at the poll question. It's on our YouTube page. What do we have up there right now? As you can take a part of that, so go ahead and vote. We would love for you to vote. What do we have up there now, Caleb?
So right now what we have, guys, is which Vol should go highest in the 2024 NFL Draft. And oh my gosh, this is a landslide because it's Joe Milton III, Jalen Wright, Kamal Hadden, or somebody else. You want to guess who's winning and by how much?
You know who never guesses, but I do want to know, is the guy who goes to trial, and it's T. Scott Jones of Banks & Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? Banks & Jones, T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. Okay, so I'm not going to look, but best career in the NFL, in my opinion, should be, and you can vote on this on our YouTube page, should be Jalen Wright. He is going to have a solid 4 to 5 year career in the NFL, in my opinion. And then I would go Kamal Hadden. That would be second. And then I would go Joe Milton III. And that's all I'm going to say because I don't want to be viewed as ripping Joe Milton III because I hope things go great for him. Kamal Hadden can be at the very least a special teams gunner. I'm not sure Joe Milton finds a place in the NFL, but I love Jalen Wright. And then somebody else is another option. So what's the breakdown? I'm guessing Jalen Wright maybe 60%, Joe Milton 20%, Kamal Hadden 20%, somewhere in there. Is that how they're breaking down? Are you laughing at me? Oh, so I'm that far off.
No,
you know I'm far off.
No. Yeah. You are right.
He just openly laughs at me.
You are right over who you picked. Jalen Wright is winning with 94%.
Wow, 94%. Yes. What does our friend Joe Milton have?
3%. And then somebody else, I wrote somebody else as an option, has 3%. And then Kamal Hadden has 0%. Guys, Joe Milton should not be beating Kamal Hadden. I'm sorry. He shouldn't.
A lot of people just don't like Kamal Hadden, despite the fact that on the Pro Football Focus and those sorts of things, he actually comes back graded a little bit higher, doesn't he?
Yeah. Kamal Hadden is one of the best.
Okay. I know a lot of people are currently on our message board and they're talking a little bit of baseball, and I want to do that right now. Travis, the segues are golden. You know it's true. And Rob, that's okay that you're late. Segue to this. No great segue. I'll just ask you this because a lot of people talking baseball on the message board. What's the most exciting sport right now? As we will discuss that a little bit later in the program because Tennessee's women's basketball team is pretty exciting. We know the football team's exciting. Needless to say, the basketball team's exciting and that their roster is completely flip-flopping and going every direction. And they had a Dalton Connect that got them all the way to the Elite Eight. So what's the most exciting in terms of stars in the what's most exciting in terms of star power and ability to have success and get up and down the court /field? But first, the Vols' biggest star in the NFL, people seem to think Jalen Wright is going to be the guy. I don't know how you can make another argument really other than Jalen Wright. And what's a good career for him? We know running back that those guys are running to the ground both in college and in the NFL. So what's a good career for Jalen Wright?
The good career for any running back, and it's going to apply to Jalen Wright. This is the only way. This is the only way you have to measure it. It's the only way. Do they get a long-term deal after their rookie deal?
Yeah.
That's the goal of every running back.
Mm-hmm.
If they can get like a 4-year, I don't know, $80 to $100 million deal, something like that, after their rookie deal, that's the mark of a good career for a running back. Because what's very true still is they're never going to be as productive as they are under their rookie scale. Is that fair to say?
Yes. And let me define those that Caleb's talking about. Caleb's basically talking about two running backs that got those type of contracts recently within the past decade. He's talking about Ezekiel Elliott and Saquon Barkley. Those are the guys that got the second great deals. Other guys got second deals, but they weren't great deals that got their. Derrick Henry, would be the other one. Those are kind of the three backs that you're talking about. So, Caleb, in a given year, is it safe to say there are only 2 or 3 elite tailbacks? Because if so, that makes it really tough on Wright. I think there were years where Henry was the only elite tailback, to be real honest with you.
Yeah, and Derrick Henry was a rare, freakish type of tailback too. There was a debate between Derrick Henry and Leonard Fournette. I think Leonard Fournette was a rare talent as well. You probably remember that debate coming out of college and high school and recruiting, right? Derrick Henry versus Leonard Fournette over who was better.
Yeah, it was clear Henry was better. There's some other issues with Wright.
Well, Les Miles said Leonard Fournette was going to be the Michael Jordan of the NFL. Remember that?
Yeah, that's tough to do. Smoky Mountain Red says it's crazy how the running back position went from being number 2 position in the draft, only behind quarterbacks, to being made number 5. And this has all happened within the last 10 years. So that's why I think that nobody holds it against Jalen Wright for leaving early, right? Because
you got to leave early.
If he picks up 75 carries, 75, that's a bare minimum. If he picks up 30 carries, 120 carries, next year, that's 120 carries he's not going to have in the NFL.
And you know what Vol fans should really appreciate? And there's only a few players I say this about. With running backs, when you're in college, Dave, if you know you're an NFL draft pick, you typically protect yourself because you know you're limited on your reps, right? And Jalen Wright, did he not run really hard for a guy who was going to get drafted this past year, which he didn't have to do? And it's him and Travis Henry. Travis Henry, I remember, was going to be a draft pick, and I don't know if anybody ran harder than Travis Henry in college.
I'll make a little comparison. I think that's a good comparison. I think both run like a bull in a china shop, which is the ultimate compliment for a tailback. I think they both run hard. I think every time you tackle them, you hurt a little bit, which is key to pounding the rock, is what Philip Fulmer used to say. The rock typically breaks if you keep pounding it long enough. I think they're similar in that they run hard. I think they're between the tailback guys. And credit them with this. Listen, Travis Henry should have transferred. Jalen Wright should have transferred. Jabari Small was the top tailback we thought going into last year, didn't we? He certainly was the top tailback going into 2022. They should have just called it and said, hey, that Jamal Lewis is there for Travis Henry. Why continue to fight through your college career? Just transfer. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic, Caleb, but that's what kids would do nowadays. I love the fact that you've got a Jalen Wright who continued to bust it when it looked like at one point he was 3rd on the depth chart, didn't it? Behind Small and Dylan Sampson.
Yeah, he was. And we actually were really hard on him at the beginning of 2022 because he was making some mistakes, not known to us at the time. He was held out of spring and fall camp because he had been banged up and he wasn't getting in rhythm. And so, yeah, I give Jalen Wright a ton of credit for this. He's not, you're right. It's funny. We brought up Travis Henry. Travis Henry is a bruising back. Jalen Wright is a all-purpose type of back. A back he kind of reminded me of was Travis Stevens more than anybody, Jalen Wright, with the way he played. And I think in this era, if Travis Stevens had come out 10 years later, he'd have been
more power than Stevens, though. Doesn't he have more power? To me, he's closer to Henry than a Stevens.
Really? I don't know. I think Stevens' power was underrated. I mean, the guy did have 40 carries in that game against Arkansas in 2001, that really ugly, rainy game. You remember that, Dave?
Yeah, no,
And
I do remember that. And he was definitely on the move. Brought to you by Boundless Moving. From their 2-hour minimum to their turnkey operations, they've got you covered. Boundless Moving moved me to Knoxville. They can move you in East Tennessee and Charlotte. Just Google Boundless Moving. Tell Matt that Off the Hook Sports sent you. That Off the Hook Sports sent you. That's Boundless Moving. Boundless Moving. See, to me, Stevens was a little bit more of a scat back type, whereas I think when you're talking about Henry, you're talking about Wright, you're talking about between the tackles. Or are you doing inventive things with Wright? I mean, if you are, that's helpful to him in terms of touching the ball. But I don't think it's a coincidence that the three guys we talked about, and Barkley and Elliott and Henry, had elite ability between the tackles. They were big, powerful backs. Smoky Mountain Red brings up a great point. Where's Jalen Wright drafted, let's say 15 years ago, to be safe? So if this is 2009, where's Jalen Wright drafted when running backs are valued higher? I think he's definitely a first rounder because he's flirting with the first round right now.
yeah, I think so too. I think he's absolutely a first rounder. If this is 15 years ago. And you're convincing me too, because Wright did run with more power. Maybe Stevens, I thought I saw power, but it was more. I'll give you this: that offensive line was just loaded that year with Fred Weary and Will Offenhusel, and you probably remember the rest of them. But those guys, I mean, I think Travis Stevens had the widest holes in the history of college football to run through that year at Tennessee. And
most amazing thing about Will Offenhusel is he was able to drink a 20-ounce beer like it was a shot.
Yeah,
wrapped his whole hand around it. You're talking about a legit 6'9". He was that. It looked like a little bitty toy beer glass, but no, they did. And I know that Jabari Davis is getting a little bit of play. By the way, Jabari Davis doing a great job. He is working with several Tennessee players and has the Tennessee cigars as well. That's fantastic. They could use a guy like Jabari Davis as far as an approachable guy. I'm not talking about elite guy. Everybody would say, yeah, what team couldn't use a Reggie Cobb? But just as far as an approachable guy, not elite, but Jabari Davis would be a great fit for these tailbacks.
Well, I think that's what Khalifa Keith is going to be, which is they want Khalifa Keith. They want him to be the next Jabari Davis. Jabari Davis was definitely a great team running back. He really accepted a lesser role the last year there when Cedric Houston was fully healthy and Gerald Riggs kind of emerged. But yeah, Jalen Wright, I think, put it this way. I think you're going to see the earliest success. I will give it to you this way. In terms of who's going to generate the most headlines over the next 3 years in the NFL out of Tennessee, it's going to be Jalen Wright. It's going to be Jalen Wright. But I think in 8 years, you'll see Kamal Hadden still playing and not Jalen Wright.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask you about that. So who else could be a factor? Kamal Hadden, you think, could address Joe Milton and address any other Vols that are up for being drafted?
This is so messed up. Joe Milton is a quarterback and has a gigantic arm, and we don't think he's going to last as long as a running back or a cornerback in the NFL that's coming out of Tennessee.
I don't.
I
don't.
But I'll tell you who I think could actually be very good if he's not going to get drafted, but he can maybe land with the team as a free agent and emerge, and that's Ramel Keaton. Ramel Keaton's just a guy you want on your team, isn't he?
Yeah,
as a receiver,
I like Ramel Keaton. Do you like Ramel Keaton more than Kamal Hadden?
No, but I think Kamal Hadden is uniquely talented. I see kind of I see Kamal as the guy that you talked about this before. You know the receivers, like when a team has like the Alvin Harper that just runs straight line speed down the sideline to open up the field. Kamal Hadden's the cornerback you put on that guy.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and so I think I'm a fan of Kamal Hadden. I think a lot of people are still mad at him when he talked all that trash against South Carolina a couple of years ago and then got worked. But at Davis, your cornerbacks typically talk a lot of trash. They kind of got to get into receivers' heads, don't they? And I mean, so I don't really mind it that much. But yeah, Ramel Keaton is my top guy. not on this list who I think could potentially make a difference. Oh, and then another one. And Dave, I know you love this guy, but I'm kind of with you. Our guy, Jacob Warren, could definitely find a roster spot with what he does, but his partner in crime, McCallan Castles, I think McCallan Castles is the guy we just forgot about. He wilded so much at the pro day, he might actually get drafted.
I'm not sure that McCallan Castles is in second on this list behind Jalen Wright. I was waiting for you to mention him. By the way, which Vols should go highest in the 2024 NFL draft? Jalen Wright gets 93% of the vote. Joe Milton, 2. Kamal Hadden, 2. Somebody else gets 27% of the vote. A new question is up and at 'em right now, as portions of the program brought to you by our good friends at Newbert Collision Center. We'll tell you more about them, but also Quality Tire Pros. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga and their community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service, automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. Downtown Chattanooga, Cherokee Blvd, or online at qualitytirepros.com. Step in and say, "Hey, Bo." Off the Hook Sports said hello. Off the Hook Sports said hello. And Reggie Bush gets his Heisman back. I am a Heisman voter. I have some strong feelings on this. It is our poll question. I'm putting that up right now as we replace the last one. Does Reggie Bush deserve his Heisman back? Yes, it's all legal now. No, it was illegal then. Caleb, will you please start? Because I do have some strong feelings, and I might alienate some people, including you, with my thoughts on this.
Yes, he should get his Heisman back.
And I've never alienated a co-host, which could be a bad thing, I'm thinking.
Well, let me be very clear. He shouldn't have won that Heisman. Vince Young should have won the Heisman.
That doesn't matter.
I know. But yes, he deserves his Heisman back. I get he was breaking certain rules that were NCAA rules at the time. I also feel like the Heisman hasn't taken the trophy away from Johnny Manzel, and Johnny Manzel is now on record, has gone on TV and admitted, yeah, I cheated. I took money. I sold autographs. It was against the rules, and I was doing it consistently. And he has been telling everybody that for the last 2 years. They haven't taken his Heisman away. The Heisman Trophy committee sent out a condolences to O.J. Simpson after he passed away, a guy who killed 2 people, who had to sell his Heisman Trophy because he was found guilty in a civil suit for murdering 2 people, and he had to sell his Heisman Trophy because of that. Yet they sent out condolences to him, and they're going to sit there and say Reggie Bush, that was the bridge too far, having somebody give your mom a nicer place to live for a couple of years. Like, well, really?
I'm going to take the O.J. Simpson and set that aside. Okay. But those are 2 completely different scenarios. And I think Southern Cal has mishandled both. Okay. So can I take that stance? I don't want to compare me personally. I don't want to compare the 2. You can, if you'd like. But with the Reggie Bush situation, it was illegal back then. And I think there are situations that when you break the law and you openly lie about it, that an award like the Heisman Trophy, and some of you all can make fun of this if you would like to, because you know what the Heisman Trophy has done to Johnny Majors and Peyton Manning, 2 all-time beloved Vols, and I understand that, but it's supposed to stand in some sense for some integrity. And Reggie Bush not only took money illegally, his family took money. They were legal adults. They did things wrong. They won a Heisman Trophy because of that, and they all lied about it. To me, to give it back, what is the point? What do you, other than saying that the Heisman isn't about integrity, what do you gain by giving it back? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition? RickTerryJewelry.com. What do you gain by giving him the trophy back? Will somebody help me on the message board, or Caleb Calhoun? What do you gain?
I think they gain, and this is the big part, some semblance of credibility back, because here's the thing. You may have a point with the integrity thing, but okay, so they retroactively took Reggie Bush's Heisman away in 2010. By the way, they didn't like sit there and suspend him when he was playing in 05. They said, we're going to, I don't know how you feel. I always hate the whole retroactive going back. We're going to pretend this didn't happen. That was an NCAA.
Well, I don't like it, but I understand it because you want to do a full investigation. We've all seen Dateline before and realized that the husband doesn't always do it, but usually.
Yes, fair enough. You want to give that? Does the Pac-10 and the NCAA want to give the money back that was generated from Reggie Bush playing during that time? If they want to pretend that those games didn't exist,
it's exactly that's fair.
Do they want to give? I mean, I don't see them giving the money back. So, and here's where here is why they had to do this. It's actually because of what's happened since 2010. They gave the Heisman to Johnny Manzel in 2012, who has openly, like I said, for 2 to 3 years now told everybody who would listen, yeah, I was cheating. I was selling autographs during that time. And they gave him the Heisman. A year later, they gave the Heisman to Jameis Winston, who was playing a season while he was under investigation for sexual assault. Oh, and I forgot about another one. I just forgot about it. In 2010, the year they took Reggie Bush's Heisman away, later that year, Cam Newton won the Heisman for a season that he played when he was under investigation for taking money to play himself at Auburn, which we all agree and all believe he took to go to Auburn.
Thank you, Mead Drinker. It justifies the dishonesty. It's not about whether or not it was an altruistic move by Southern California to give his mom a better house. Maybe it was right outside of a rougher neighborhood. I'm aware of that, but it's about the dishonesty. Thank you, Mead Drinker. If I say it off the hook sports, marijuana is illegal. And one of us lives in a state where it's very illegal. But if I say that it's not according to our rules, marijuana and meth, those are the two I pick. Those are the two I take a
So cocaine's okay.
Cocaine, everything in between's okay. Just don't go straight to the black tar. But no, if I say that everything except for this, that, and Stacey Oliver, our baseball writer, Caleb Calhoun, fell one of those tests, I still have the right to have those rules, right? The NCAA has the right to have those rules back then and continue to enforce it. So why in the world are they coming back? I mean, I'm just still searching for the goal that was accomplished by giving Reggie Bush his trophy back. Did he threaten to sue them? They didn't just wake up and say, hey, let's give Reggie Bush his Heisman back. Something happened, right?
Because they have to, two things happened, I think. One, they have to apply it evenly, Dave. If you're going to have yes, you're right. You have a rule, no smoking marijuana or doing meth. And if I show up, if I fail a drug test with you one day and you fire me, but yeah, Stacey fails a drug test and you don't fire her, I'm going to sit there and say that's unfair. Okay.
Oh,
you got to apply it evenly.
That's fair. That's
and
fair.
So, Johnny Manzel, why, if they're going to have this standard, why haven't they taken Johnny Manzel's Heisman Trophy? He's admitted multiple times that he took money when he was at Texas A&M and that he sold autographs. By the NCAA's own rule for Reggie Bush, he should be have been considered ineligible from that time, right? And they are letting him keep his Heisman. Cam Newton, okay, he was cleared by the NCAA, but he was at least shopping himself around.
I always thought that was the emblematic point in which the NCAA had no power was Cam Newton. Where, like, if they wanted that, like 20 years ago, well, it was about 20 years ago, but 50 years ago, they would have forced the issue and come down on them like SMU. But since that point, they haven't had the power to be able to do that. And Auburn would have fought it, and they would have retained their national championship, and it would have made the NCAA look bad. It's funny you bring up Cam Newton. I've always thought that was the one point in which they threw up their hands and then said, we can't fight this.
Oh, I think that's true, too. I absolutely think that's true.
I mean, which one before did the NCAA so weak, and which did the NCAA seem weak, or which one after did they seem strong? They didn't seem strong after, and they sure as heck didn't seem weak when they were coming down on Southern California.
Well, and let's be clear on this part, too, because this is a huge deal. If USC didn't have the most arrogant athletic director in the history of arrogant athletic directors in Mike Garrett that had rubbed everybody the wrong way. You know that, Dave, from back then, because you were covering him hiring Lane Kiffin away. They probably could have beaten the NCAA too. But Mike Garrett was doing these PR moves saying everybody's jealous that they didn't play for USC. They're jealous that they're not Trojans. And you go and hire Lane Kiffin from Tennessee, who was already in some hot water and also was super arrogant at the time. I feel like if USC had been a little more level-headed, they probably could have beaten the NCAA and kept that title and kept Reggie Bush's Heisman, right?
Do me a favor. Pick one word to describe what exactly Southern Cal's hiring of Lane Kiffin would be. Brought to you by Varner Ford.
Bronco, 59,829. 24 Ford Maverick, all-wheel drive, 28,540. 24 Ford Explorer, XLT four-wheel drive, 49,996. Local you trust, experience you can afford. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
My word is just dumb. I don't think they get a huge NCAA penalty if they hire anybody but Lane Kiffin without NCAA baggage. You?
I agree. I think that was a big, well, and Mike Garrett making the hire, like I said, because Mike Garrett was so arrogant. But Lane Kiffin
if you remember, they got like 36, 38 scholarships. I mean, it was massive.
Yeah. Also,
it was the biggest since SMU that I recall.
I think, and Tennessee fans don't want to hear this, but it is true. I think a lot of the NCAA administration had a soft spot for Tennessee and felt a little bad for Tennessee with what happened, because I think Tennessee had always been in the NCAA's good graces for a while. And I think because of that added to them coming down on USC.
Yep. I will tell you this too. I think when you look at Tennessee, if you're going to start giving Heisman trophies back, it was every bit as orchestrated, that 1997 Heisman Trophy campaign, as any other one. And if you want to start giving Heisman trophies back, go back and poll the voters that had a vote in 1997 that gave it to Charles Woodson instead of Peyton Manning. Now, you wouldn't have a lot of those that voted, did not vote for majors. But if you wanted to go back to one where a lot of people are still walking around in the face of this earth, I think that Peyton Manning would end up with the Heisman over Charles Woodson if people had it to do over again. And let's remember, that narrative was largely created by who? That would have been ESPN. And that's a simple fact. Caleb, I think there would be a massive change.
Yes, there are layers to this. You're right. There's the Tennessee over promoting Peyton Manning, and they wanted a new narrative. There was ESPN had a lot of Midwestern journalists at the time, because the Midwest had you know this, Dave, you went to school for journalism. The Midwest schools, Big Ten schools, were known for journalism. And so they they were factories for journalists at that time. There was a lot of bias there. There was also this, though, because Danny Werfel won the Heisman the year before. So people thought it was anti-SEC bias, but that didn't make sense, because Danny Werfel had won the Heisman the year before, despite losing to Florida State. So it just kind of came down to, people didn't really like Philip Fulmer, because a lot of college football analysts at ESPN were very fond of Johnny Majors, and they weren't going to be friendly to Fulmer. They were going to give Werfel the Heisman because, you know this, who didn't love Steve Spurrier at ESPN? Everybody loved him. But I know this, Lee Corso and Craig James was at ESPN at the time. They genuinely did not like what was done to Johnny Majors in 92. And I'm sure they had it out for Tennessee after that for a while because of that.
Well, doesn't necessarily surprise me about Lee Corso. I didn't know that about Craig James. Throughout its history, only one defensive player, that's Charles Woodson, has won the Heisman. So we had Mead Drinker ask that question, and that's all that have won it since. If that's all that have won it beforehand, it's pretty obvious. Coming up on the program, I'm looking forward to this next one because Derek Dooley is back in the news. He is going to lead a group of 5 playoff initiative. Will it stick? Probably not. But the most exciting Tennessee sport to watch nowadays, that Tennessee baseball is just dinging them left, right, and center. And quarterback situations in the SEC, while Tennessee comes up 9th. Yes, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th. Stay tuned. More with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare!
Experience it all at Varner Ford in Clinton. Need a quick fix or routine maintenance? Visit our Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center. Keep your Ford running smoothly with the experts in our service department. Ready for your next Ford? Our sales team's here to guide you through. 24 Ford Badlands Bronco, 59829. 24 Ford Maverick all-wheel drive, 28540. 24 Ford Explorer XLT four-wheel drive, 49996. Local you trust, experience you can afford. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
If you are on our YouTube channel, you can see Hooker's Corner. You can become a John. We would love to have you be a member of our Patreon group. And I tell you what, it's pretty awesome because you can win great stuff. Not only do you get some insight and you get Caleb Calhoun's thoughts and my insight and extra connection to us, which we hope you appreciate, but you also will get a little something extra, and that is prizes. So we give away weekly prizes, which include t-shirts and also Celebrate 98, the untold stories behind Tennessee's 1998 national championship book. We give that away on a weekly basis. But this week, it's pretty cool. It is an autographed helmet from the one, the only, if I can share it correctly, which may or may not happen, there he is on the screen. It is the one, the only Big John Henderson, an autographed helmet from Big John Henderson that we will be able to give away as part of our April grand prize. Now, we're going to do that at the end of next week. So what would that Friday be? It would be the first week. It'd be the first Friday in May. Caleb, you can help me with that. But an autographed helmet from John Henderson. And by the way, John will be at Sports Treasures this Saturday from 5 to 7 to autograph your helmet. If you want to stop by, tickets are available. Go to Facebook, Sports Treasures TN. Again, Sports Treasures TN. And don't forget, you need to follow them on Facebook because they have over $5 million of sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia. Here's the one thing that people will say coming away from an autograph session with John Henderson is, man, he was a lot quieter than I thought he would be. That's the one thing they'll say. John is a very quiet guy. You talk about the big silent type or the big baby type. Not that he's a baby. I don't mean that, but you know, he's a big kid.
Kind of like the teddy bear until you mess with him.
big teddy bear until you. That's right. Don't peck him or poke him or don't slap him or do any of those things
unless he wants you to, so he can get ready for the game.
Unless he specifically asked for it. So that's what he did. All right. Most exciting Tennessee Vols sports to watch coming up. Quarterback situations in the SEC, while one regional writer has the Vols all the way down number 9. That's not even halfway in the newly expanded SEC by my math. But first, Derek Dooley leading a group of 5 playoff initiative. Why in the world is he in charge of this? Tell me more about Derek Dooley getting involved with the NCAA and a group of 5 playoff initiative.
For those of you who are not aware, Derek Dooley has spent the past 2 years as an analyst at Alabama. I'm assuming he wasn't retained by Kalen DeBoer. That's my guess. I don't know that. I have no knowledge. However,
well, then Derek he was Dooley, in Missouri, where most people thought he was doing a decent job. But anyway.
Yes, I actually thought so too. He is pitching a group of 5 playoff that would be financially backed by private equity sources. The concept would basically be a way to steer some of the revenue that's so disproportionately in favor of the SEC and Big Ten to the group of 5. The idea behind it is this. As college football changes over the next few years, the group of 5 has actually, I think, pulled off a pretty big win, which is successfully guaranteeing themselves a spot in the college football playoff. But the problem is, okay, you can have your little spot in the college football playoff, but you're still going to get lapped and lapped and lapped in revenue. So one of the things they're thinking is, and they've actually played with this a little bit, is kind of an in-season playoff towards the end of the year, right before the college football playoff starts, where they would have a playoff to determine the team that would go to the college football playoff. And honestly, Dave, if you're in the group of 5, that's not a terrible idea, because it's a way to generate extra ratings for yourself over the past the final 3 weeks of the regular season, because everybody would be watching to say which one of these teams is going to get into the playoff. And
can we talk about Derek Dooley here for a second? Does he want to be an administrator more than a coach? Which just would underscore how bad of a hire that was for Tennessee.
I think he was more meant to be an administrator than a coach. I think Derek Dooley is, I think he's a very smart guy. I do think he's a very smart guy. I don't think he was meant for the dealing with coaching and things. Put it this way. I'll give you a great example. If Derek Dooley were in some way involved with the United States military, I think he would be really cut out for like Secretary of Defense, but he wouldn't be cut out to be a general. Does that make sense? Like,
yes. So you're saying that he's a very smart guy who just happened to be good at football because his dad was Vince Dooley, basically, is what you're saying, because that's the direction in which he was steered.
Exactly. So I think Derek Dooley behind a desk can make logical, rational, well thought out decisions, but he's not the guy that's going to rally the troops and think on his feet in the game and stuff like that. And by the way, that's fine. I don't know if I'm that guy. I don't know how many people are that guy. Okay, I'm not knocking him for that. But I think he talks about it, how he went to law school, and then he said he got back into coaching because he read Colin Powell's book like in 1996 and Colin Powell was talking about the camaraderie in the military, and he said he missed that with football, so he wanted to get back into it. But he just was never really cut out to be a football coach. But I do think he's a smart administrator. And I think Derek Dooley leading something like this is smart. He is apparently and reportedly getting private equity firms to financially back this. And I mean, Dave, I'm sorry, I don't know. I would actually trust Derek Dooley's ability to solicit private equity funds to.
Hey, the one reason I wouldn't trust him, one reason I would like him to be a part of this is you've got to think he's got Nick Saban's phone number, and that could help him push something through if it was close, right? Nick Saban can help him get that done. But the one reason I wouldn't like it, I'm going to tell you in 15 seconds, brought to you by Joe Newber at Collisions.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Caleb, I don't think he has the ability to delegate. I don't think he had that at Tennessee. I don't think he has that now. I don't think he had that at times as the offensive coordinator at Missouri. I think that's the reason you saw 13 men on the field at LSU. And I think there's one of two things going on. One, he doesn't delegate well. And two, he doesn't choose the right people to delegate to. And both of those are serious problems.
They are. I mean, I get what you're saying on that. They are. Do you not
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. That means stuff to that stuff.
Okay, I'm trying to go back through history and look at, like, there are some coaches who micromanage a lot more than others. Not coaches, but like in administrative roles who micromanage a lot more than others. I don't know how much of a difference that has made in the past. I mean, I know, like, just going back to it, I know there's many presidents who were very micromanaging and hands-on, and some who did delegate things to everything else. And I don't know if it's totally, if there's a through line over who the more successful ones were or not based on that. But I would say that Derek Dooley, I think sometimes in a role like this, I'm not so sure you have to delegate as much as you do in coaching. Because you can kind of make all the decisions.
An awful lot to do. I mean, you and I aren't doing anything nearly as massive as trying to pull off a group of 5 playoff, and there's a lot of delegation that has to go on. If not, I would go insano, and you probably would too. So I don't know. I think there's probably more delegation behind the scenes that has to go on than maybe you're giving it credit for.
Yes, but the delegation with this, and here's what I mean. So for football coaching, the delegation is you have to delegate tasks to people, but then you have to let them make their own decisions and things like that. So you got to delegate to Chuck Smith, know which defensive lineman you want to put on the field for the LSU game in the final 2 minutes or 2 seconds.
And you have to trust him or then trust the next guy. I think Derek Dooley learned a valuable lesson there in that he trusted after that Lance Thompson to be the guy who handled substitutions. And he basically told Chuck Smith that his days as a coach were done. He could still dress like one and be on the sideline if he would like to, but that he was not going to really coach anymore.
Yes, but that's the thing with an administrator.
This is essentially what he did for the rest of the year.
And then it was a bad split. I remember that whole thing. Yeah. But where I'm at is, as an administrator, you can make all the actual discretionary decisions and then just delegate tasks that require no decision making to everybody else. I mean, David Stern didn't really delegate when he ran the NBA. It was his league and he made every decision for it.
Okay. Let me ask you this. You pick one word. Derek Dooley as an administrator, and would you trust him to lead the group of 5 into a playoff scenario? Brought to you by our good friends at Dynasty Pools and Spas. The best thing about Dynasty Pools and Spas is that they've got it all taken care of. What does that mean? Well, you stop by their showroom and check out their fantastic selection of top-notch spas in that showroom in Athens. Make your pick and get ready, because Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers within 125 miles of that location in Athens, that fantastic showroom. They've got the cover lift, steps, chemicals, and everything you need. Delivery at no extra charge. They're just down the road in Athens. You pick the spa you want, and it'll be there for you. Oftentimes discounted with military and first responders discounts. Also blemish bottles, or just mention Off the Hook Sports. That's Off the Hook Sports for $500 off. There's a discount for you on spas made right here in East Tennessee. Support local. Dynasty Pools and Spas also has the best chemicals for you and your spa and your pool. No fillers, just the chemicals made right here in East Tennessee. Support local. Dynasty Pools and Spas, $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. Dynasty Pools and Spas, dynastypoolsandspas.com. All right, so I asked the message board this, and Caleb, you would trust Derek Dooley to run an organization as important as this, and that's to put together the playoff. I wouldn't trust Derek Dooley to mow my yard because I know the weed eating wouldn't get done, and he'd do it at like 6 a.m. on a Saturday and make all of my neighbors mad.
Yes, I would trust him. He's also creative. He has creative ideas a lot of times. Not always good, but he is a little creative. I would trust him. I do think he's very smart. I just don't think he's and it's a sad story of life, honestly, because we see a lot of people who do this in a lot of careers, people who didn't choose the right career path for their skill set. And Derek Dooley chose coaching, should have been an administrator. See, Butch Jones has no skill set. There was nothing he could have done that he would have been great at. But
I don't know that his skill set was an administrator. I think his skill set is that Derek Dooley's highly intelligent, and he probably could get by in 90% of the fields out there.
Right,
I think if Derek Dooley in middle school said, I want to be a doctor, an orthopedic surgeon, he could have been an orthopedic surgeon.
If I wanted Derek Dooley, because he went to law school, if I'm trying to win a Supreme Court case and I'm like, Derek Dooley, you got a year. I need you to be my attorney to win it for me. Can you study this for a year? I would trust him to do that. I bet he would study the ins and outs and he'd be able to argue it in a second, wouldn't he?
Smoky Mountain Red says he would be in Dave's yard trimming the bushes into a poodle shape instead of weed eating. Yes, Derek Dooley is much more like Edward Scissorhands than Nick Saban. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, Nick Saban is also a rare breed of a guy who is a CEO like Derek Dooley, but also a coach.
But hey now, I got an Edward Scissorhands reference in.
You did. That's very true. You did.
Yeah. Top that. You can't top that because it's just that good. Tennessee's most exciting team on the field. It might be the Lady Vols pretty soon, or it could continue to be Tennessee's football team. Or maybe there's a spring sport that is just that exciting. In 2 minutes, we'll discuss. Tennessee baseball gets a big-time shout-out as they'll be a part of the daily program as well. They just keep hitting dingers. Hang tight for 2 minutes with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This is a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Bronco, 59,829. 24 Ford Maverick, all-wheel drive, 28,540. 24 Ford Explorer, XLT four-wheel drive, 49,996. Local you trust, experience you can afford. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
4 Downs brought to you by Dynasty Spas, the most comfortable spas made in the United States of America, right here in East Tennessee. Drop in for the all-new showroom in Athens. Dynasty Spas, perfect for all 4 seasons. 4 Downs, presented by Off the Hook Sports.
I've seen it on the message board. Tennessee's baseball team is just darn exciting. Keep hitting home runs at a frantic pace. And then the Lady Vols pick up a key commitment in the early days under their new coaching regime. So, Caleb, I ask you this question, and it is on our YouTube page. We'll get into it. 4 Downs brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. Certainly check out their location there in Athens. But what's the most exciting Tennessee team? Is it football, baseball, basketball, or will be women's basketball? That's brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. So, Cooper Mays, tell us how we take part in 4 Downs.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thanks, Coop. Here we go. First down.
Coop here. First down.
So football with 64% of the vote, baseball with 27% of the vote, basketball with 9% of the vote will be women's basketball. Has not gotten a vote yet, over several dozen who have voted already. Now, football with 64% doesn't surprise me, but the answer is men's basketball because you only know half the roster in the offseason, and they're going to start dribbling the ball for real here in about 5 months. So the most exciting Vols team is men's basketball because it's completely flipping almost 60% in a year. So I don't even think it's close. It's basketball. It's men's basketball.
Dave, it's not close, but it's the reverse. Men's basketball is the least exciting. Now they're going to win. I don't blame Rick Barnes' style, but every other team on Tennessee, like, basically is just all about offense and flash and like putting fans in the seats. And basketball is more traditional, Rick Barnes' traditional try to win. But Kim Caldwell is going to have the most frenetic pace that's ever been run in women's basketball at this level next year, just as women's basketball is rising. We know about Josh Heupel. By the way, I didn't talk to you about this because you weren't here on Monday, but how much more exciting is Josh Heupel's offense going to be, not just with Nico Iamaleava, but now that helmet communications are allowed in football?
He says that's not going to make much of a difference, which makes me think that it's going to make a big difference.
It's going to make a huge difference. It's going to make a gigantic difference. We got Tennessee baseball. I mean, they're hitting home runs galore. Okay. By the way, their pitching ain't bad, but they're a home run team. But guys, I'm going to be honest with you. You guys are actually wrong. The most exciting brand. Now, as a sport, football in general is the most exciting sport, but relative to its league, women's basketball is going to be the most exciting of all the sports next year. Kim Caldwell is literally injecting the same level of energy into SEC women's basketball that Bruce Pearl did in 2005 on the men's side. We're talking about, no, she's not going to take her shirt off and paint her chest, guys. I'm sorry. But we're talking about a level of excitement with her style of play that has never been seen at this level for women's basketball. And I'm talking about even Iowa and UConn, which have been more guard oriented traditionally. Gino Auriemma has been more guard oriented. He's never run this. Kim Caldwell is bringing 40 minutes of hell to women's basketball. So it's going to be the most exciting style of women's basketball to ever see at this level. So it's women's basketball.
All right, so that was a first down. It is time for second down, brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Okay, so for me, I think I know yours, but who is second on your list? For me, it is the Tennessee football team because of one guy, and it's Nico Iamaleava. He's the guy who makes Tennessee that much more exciting. I think they have a generational coach and a generational player, and I don't think that happens. So for me, number 2 would be behind Tennessee basketball because of their roster turnover, would be the football team because of their offensive firepower.
I got football at number 2 also. Funny enough, I just have it, but for the same reason, Nico is just so exciting.
All right, what down, Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. Why do you have so much faith that Rick Barnes is going to put together a solid roster for the upcoming season when I think he has 8 of 15 guys now as far as roster spots, with guys transferring and guys leaving? Now, we don't know what's going to happen with some of the guys, and there may be another transfer from Charlotte, I believe, come in. You might want to address those 2 guys. But to me, I don't have a ton of faith. I have some faith that Rick Barnes will put together a solid roster. But what if some of these guys don't pan out when they hit a college level?
I mean,
a higher college level, I should say. Excuse me.
So I think that Rick Barnes, and
And I want to be clear to Mark real quick.
Let
me be clear to Mark real quick. I want to talk about the most exciting in its own playing field. In other words, you have a women's basketball team that's going to get up and down. You have a men's basketball team that has to be put together. You have a baseball team that's hitting home runs. So I mean on its own accord. I'm not trying to compare what is more popular. That's always going to be football. So I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, football's the engine that drives the train. This is about what's the most exciting brand to watch relative to its sport. Rick Barnes, I think, I don't know for sure, but I do think Rick Barnes is going the route that actually is much more effective for him than what was done in the past with one and dones. And I think Rick Barnes has found another Dalton Connect. He's going to get another big, maybe two in the system before this is all said and done. And he's willing at 70 to constantly change with the flow. Now, again, I think men's basketball is going to be the most effective because Rick Barnes knows what he's doing. It's just not going to be the most exciting. Effective and exciting is different. Georgia football is not an exciting brand of football to watch, but it's winning championships.
All right. I want to get to fourth down. Mark says baseball is the sexiest sport. Maybe that's the question we should be asking. Fourth down brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. The best thing about Dynasty Pools and Spas is that they've got it all taken care of. What does that mean? Well, you stop by their showroom and check out their fantastic selection of top-notch spas in that showroom in Athens. Make your pick and get ready, because Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers within 125 miles of that location in Athens, that fantastic showroom. They've got the cover lift, steps, chemicals, and everything you need. Delivery at no extra charge. They're just down the road in Athens. You pick the spa you want, and it'll be there for you. Oftentimes discounted with military and first responders discounts. Also blemish models, or just mention Off the Hook Sports. That's Off the Hook Sports for $500 off. There's a discount for you on spas made right here in East Tennessee. Support local. Dynasty Pools and Spas also has the best chemicals for you and your spa and your pool. No fillers, just the chemicals. Made right here in East Tennessee. Support local. Dynasty Pools and Spas. $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. Dynasty Pools and Spas. DynastyPoolsandSpas.com.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
What's the sexiest sport, Mark? I just stole your question. I hope you don't mind. I will be sure and credential you for that. Mark, kudos. The most sexiest sport on campus is... It's tough for me to say baseball despite the home runs because they were so sexy a couple of years ago. I mean, they were all over the place. They were wearing hats and fedoras and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I would say that the sexiest sport right now is football. And that's different from most exciting. But Caleb, I would go football again for the same reason as most exciting. I don't want to cop out, but that's where I am. Baseball, by the way, has set their attendance record. And if you're in Knoxville, you know how hard it is to get a ticket. So you want to make an argument for baseball, Caleb. I'm not going to argue against you.
It's baseball because it's not just the sexiest sport in terms of, it's one of the top two in terms of football, women's basketball, and baseball are all sexy sports now because of their excitement. But then baseball's got like the heartthrob head coach that every single woman wants to date in Tony Vitello, which just adds to it.
A guy came up to me the other, not a guy, a gal came up to me the other day and said, "Did you know you look just like Tony Vitello?"
Did they really, Dave? Did she really? Did she really?
That didn't happen. Yeah. Our good friends at Apex Apparel Group Design. Apex Apparel, they do so much more than just shirts. They do design, brand, market your way. Go to yourapexapparel.com, yourapexapparel.com, or go right below and call Tyler at 865-919-3001, 865-919-3001, and you will get 15% off your first order for your business. It is absolutely phenomenal. So how much sexier can this baseball program get? They could add more seats, I guess. They're sold out. You don't want to be overly inflated or fat at some point. So do you keep pouring gas on this baseball fire, or do you kind of let it settle a little bit, finish the new press box, which will be done by next year, and kind of see where you are? Because don't forget this, you have a downtown baseball stadium that I'm sure is going to be somewhat competitive to the Diamond Balls at Lindsey Nelson, right?
Yes, you do. It could get It can get pretty sexy because there are all these renovations. They're expanding. It's an exciting sport to watch. Whatever you guys want to think about John Curry, he hit a home run, no pun intended, with the Tony Vitello hire. I mean, that was a heck of a pickup. And you add in it with Vol Twitter, and it's just, I got to be honest. Yes, it is a sexy hire, and it is a sexy baseball team. And chicks dig the long ball. They always say that, although not fully true, because baseball is more entertaining when there's actual balls in play. You're seeing that in major leagues now. Home runs are up, but in play balls are down, and that's actually caused ratings to drop because home runs or strikeouts alone make things boring. So, but I think Tennessee does put a lot of balls in play. So it'll get sexier if they go win a College World Series. How about that? That's how it can get sexier. I mean, that's where it could go. But it's between baseball and women's basketball and football, those three. Because again, I will say this with football, and you have a point with the sexy program. It's not just the offense. It's not just Josh Heupel's offense that's so cutting edge. It's that he's got the most exciting quarterback in college football to run it this upcoming year. And
sure,
Nico Iamaleava is just going to, guys, I'm telling y'all, and y'all think I'm crazy about this, but I think he's going to be, outside of the Deion Sanders Colorado drama, which will never stop being talked about, Nico Iamaleava is going to be the most talked about subject in college football for the next 2 years. Do you think I'm crazy about that?
No. I hope that's not the case. I hope he can kind of slip up on the radar a little bit, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
Not possible. Not possible.
I don't think that's going to be the case. I would like for him to be unlike Peyton Manning and be an old story by the time that he is an upperclassman, but I think he's going to be an old story by the time he's an upperclassman because he's a redshirt freshman. So let's say somehow he gets to his junior year, where he gets past third year of eligibility. Who knows what NIL is going to do? I'm not ruling anything out right now, although I don't think it's going to be comparable money. If he gets past that, I hope college football as a country isn't tired of him. I hope that's not the case. Now, we're not going to try to rip anybody, okay? Because everybody has their own opinions, and opinions matter. And we like to think that our opinions matter. Some people they matter, some people they don't. Quarterback situations in the SEC. Our good friend Connor O'Gara, who does a fantastic job at Saturday Down South, ranked Tennessee's. And I thought this might surprise Caleb at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting. So I said, where do you think they are? And he said, probably top 3. And I said, no. He said, probably top 5. I said, no. He said, top 8. I said, no. He said, top 10. I said, barely. Number 9, here's what Connor O'Gara has to think of Tennessee. I need Tennessee fans to hear this. I'm all in on Nico Iamaleava. If this were a ranking of just SEC quarterbacks entering 2024, he'd probably be 6 or 7, which is saying something in a league that returns 5 quarterbacks who started in New Year's 6 bowls. But it's not. Instead, it's a ranking of quarterback situations, and Tennessee's quarterback situation leaves something to be desired. Gaston Moore will look great in the spring game. And I get that he's entering year 5 in Josh Heupel's offense, one at UCF, 4 in Tennessee. He's also a former walk-on with 4 career passes versus Power 5 competition. Impressive spring game showings don't necessarily raise that. Amen to the second half of what Connor O'Gara wrote there. However, I do think Gaston Moore is a nice little luxury to have in case something were to happen to Nico. And then I think Merklinger is the other factor that wasn't mentioned in here. He is a highly regarded guy that if Tennessee had a game on Saturday, Moore might be the second stringer. But if Tennessee has a game in September, which they do, Jake Merklinger is going to be the backup. Okay. That's what's going to happen. And so I think Gaston Moore, his showing in the orange and white game is just that. It's neat. That was his Super Bowl, but it's going to be Merklinger if something happens to Iamaleava. Before we get into that a little bit deeper, or I want to get into that a little bit deeper, but then I want to talk about the quarterback rooms in the SEC that are better than Tennessee. Caleb?
Yeah, so let's go down the list real quick, and I'm just going to say it. Okay, so I actually have no problem with number 1. Texas should be number 1. Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning. I mean, who's really going to say that they shouldn't be number 1?
I'm going to go ahead and tell you I have no problem with anybody returning a starter from last year, which would be 5 teams.
Oh, I'm not going there, and I'll tell you why. Alabama has no business at number 2. I don't care what you guys think about Jalen Milroe. He is not a fit for Kalen DeBoer's offense. This is not a good match.
I know where you're coming from. And at the end of September, I think that we will completely agree that Nico is far better than Jalen Milroe. But if I were doing this list, I would have the 5 guys with full-time returning starters as my first 5. That would be me personally.
But you're leaving out. It's not just about him being a returning starter. He's not a returning starter in this system. I mean, he is, and that's where I'm going with this. I don't think Jalen Milroe, people think, and Dave, you know this more than I do. One of the most common mistakes people make about football. They think if a coach runs a spread offense that automatically the mobile quarterback is a better fit for the system. You ever notice that?
Yes, it's not the same thing.
Not the same thing. Michael Penix was a pocket passer. He wasn't that athletic. And
Michael Penix is Warren Moon. Redone over and over. They just happen to be African-American, but they both throw from the pocket. Troy Aikman type, if you want to use that comparison. They're not going to run around and beat you.
Right, exactly. Jalen Milroe, and they will go through their progressions. Jalen Milroe is a first read and run guy. Period. End of story. That's all he is. And Saban tweaked the offense for him last year. But yeah, so I would not have Alabama, but I'm fine with Texas. I'm fine with Georgia. I'm fine with Ole Miss. I agree with you. I'm not fine with Texas A&M because they had issues last year. I get they got a new coach, and the one without a returning starter that I'm fine with is I will say I'm fine with LSU because Garrett Nussmeier is everything I've heard is he's their Nico basically.
Okay,
I mean, people say he's going to be better than Jaden Daniels.
So I would have Tennessee at 6th. I think that I would have the 5 guys with starters above. I would have Alabama at number 5. I think that if I re-rank these things, and maybe we should, I mean, maybe instead of a power ranking, we do a quarterback ranking. That's not the worst idea in the world, Caleb. I'm curious what you think about that as the season rolls on, because I think Tennessee starts in the top third of the pack. Most would agree. Do they go deeper than that? I believe they do, but Caleb, we don't know for sure until we get into late September or on October.
Yeah, I agree, but I mean that's what the off season's for, is to talk about this stuff. And I do think that you're right. We won't know until I think we'll know. Look, with Nico, we're going to know. People who cover Tennessee already know. Casual Tennessee fans will know by week 2 after NC State. The nation's going to know about Nico after Oklahoma. Dave, I told Jimmy this last week. You probably remember it. Do you remember the 95 Tennessee-Arkansas game where Peyton Manning lit up Arkansas? And that got the nation talking about Peyton Manning? That's going to happen when Tennessee plays Oklahoma this year. I think Josh Heupel at the end of September, with all eyes on Tennessee-Oklahoma, because I think that's the only marquee game that weekend, he's going to want to light up Oklahoma because of what they did to him. And he wants Nico to burst out into a star. I'm telling you right now, after Tennessee, Oklahoma in September, the entire nation is going to be talking about Nico as the Heisman candidate and the Heisman frontrunner.
Okay, so I would have Tennessee 6 behind 5 starters. In other words, I've got them the top quarterback room that doesn't have a defined starter. You would have Tennessee where?
Top quarterback rooms that without a defined starter, I would actually have.
No. You can include with a defined starter. So if you
with a defined starter,
you want to give Jalen Milroe the big middle finger, you can do that.
I got them 5th. I've got Ole Miss, Georgia, Texas ahead of them, and then one team without a defined starter, returning starter, LSU. I've got them ahead of Tennessee too. I don't have Garrett Nussmeier ahead of Nico. I will say that, but I would say I have AJ Swan ahead of Jake Merklinger. So that
good post about Amaro. I do not fear the Oklahoma game for some reason. I don't either. I just think Tennessee's going to win that game. I don't know why. Maybe we'll get into games that you fear.
Because Josh Heupel is going to do what Eli Drinkwitz did to Tennessee last year. He's going to do everything he can to light up Oklahoma.
Yeah, but let's leave him wanting more. Come on. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation